Hello world! Welcome to Decode or Not to Code. I'm Miliva. I'm really happy to be here today, and I cannot wait to continue building our AdventQRlendar. There's a festive season is almost upon us, and instead of a boring chocolatey advent calendar, we will have an QR code advent calendar, or in short, an advent calendar. Uh, Stefan is helping me build this as I'm a coding noob. Are you ready to do this, Stefan?
Yes, I
Yes.
am. I was about to say almost because I never feel really ready. But yeah, yes, I'm ready.
Fabulous, fabulous. So last time I think we finished we finished while debugging, right? Because we had a little bug that we didn't fix last time. Um, I believe. Um,
Indeed, when we go to so we have two pages, the calendar overview page, where we want to have the basically be able to view and print the front page, or the cover of the calendar with the cutouts and all the doors, and the back end more or less, which should include then all the QR codes, where the top page will be printed onto the QR code page. And we built this QR codes designer where we run into a bit of an issue. And the issue said from last time that
oh yes.
the add value is not a valid attribute name, and we couldn't figure it out on the spot. Now, jumping into the code, we had a closer look. We just had a closer look, and it was a little bit too obvious our mistake. So if we jump to the QR code item, I had on the value, on the input value, since value isn't a Blazor or a Razor thing, it's actually an HTML thing. So this add here is not valid. There is no add value. It's called just value. And if we change that and rerun the application, and now we see the 24 elements
Yay.
with what we actually wanted to see from last time, and with the text. So we basically just switch back to red, just the number as a text. So, but what this should actually represent is the URL. So perhaps let's briefly change that, because I think we added this last time for a bit of a debugging thing. So if we go to one of the pages, to the QR codes page, where we inject the doors, we see that these doors come from the QRlendar, which is, if we have a look at the code behind, a service that we inject. So we register it in our startup and then can inject it in the pages and components where required. And if we have a look at here, we do just use the string 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as an element. And I guess let's get rid of that, because in the beginning the URL is empty. So let's have a look. We actually have two constructors for our door, one that takes a number, one that takes a number and a URL. So let's make this URL perhaps optional. And if we don't have a number, we don't want to have it now, but let's set it to an empty string. So we can say string.empty. And this is not UI, but URL. Yes. And now we have an empty URL, just as we want to start. And we refactored this into the QR calendar service and the door item collection that we have in order to preserve state. So when we enter here, let's say URL1, which actually now renders to a QR code, what we built also in the previous session, and URL2, my URL 7543. If we switch pages, we actually wanted to preserve the state. So if I go back, we see that the URL is preserved because we still have the same 24 doors. We just set the text of the door, but we didn't have the rendering yet.
Yeah.
It seems that we made a mistake there. And Stuart B. Lang says hi. Thank you, Stuart,
Hi.
for joining. So let's have a look what we are still missing.
Yeah.
This could be a tricky one though, because let's go to our component. That's our QR code item component. We have our door that we just had a look at. I think I can do Alt F12 in order to inline. So we see our inline the definition of our door, which has a number from 1 to 24 and the URL, and that we inject as a parameter. And we also add the attribute editor required in order for our tooling would display a warning if the parent component isn't setting it. And we also have, and then we display the number of the door and also the URL of the door in an input value. And in the middle, we have this image where we use the add to ref from not sure if this is Blazor specific or Razor general to, well, it seems Blazor because it's a IGS object reference. No, there it is, the element reference, which we then use in order to set via the JavaScript that we have in place the QR code image that we generate via the QR code NuGet package. It's actually quite some steps. So we grab the text that the user puts in, we convert this via the NuGet package to a QR code, that binary. Then we convert this into a memory stream in order to be able to pass it to the JavaScript. And this function that we have, setImage, we actually defined in our code. So we have here the component, the QR code, which displays one QR code in this collection of 24 items. We have here our code behind, and we have here the related JavaScript. And in the JavaScript, if we put this side by side, we got the setImage function just here, which now sets it for image elements as a source. And now I'm wondering if we could just call this method in order to basically invoke this JavaScript on one of the lifetime methods. So what I like to do is to go to override and then have the IDE help me. So we have several methods because I never remember anything. Lifetime methods. So there is, for example, an after render, which happens after rendering, on initialized, which also has an async version to it, on parameter set, which should be invoked when we set actually our door parameter that we have. And there is also a method which should return true if the HTML should be re-rendered or not. And I would like to try the initialized async here. And I'll just, being somewhat lazy, and just copy that code.
Oh, work smarter, not harder.
Well, I guess, code duplication could end up in issues. But let's first try to see it working, and we can then later on refactor it. So we, I should await this because we are an async method. Now everything that returns, or is usually methods that are suffixed with async, do return a task. And the task that they return can be awaited. And only when this task is completed, the rest of the method will be executed. And in order to create our QR code, we can actually get a hold of the door parameter that we have injected ourselves. So let's try door.url. And let's see if that works. And it does not. So we get an error. Let's jump to the developer tools. Yeah, we get exactly 24 errors.
Okay, fabulous.
So that's on each and every door that we have. Unhandled exception rendering component value cannot be null. JS object reference. And looking at the call stack, not sure if this is. Yeah, so it seems to be our uninitialized triggering it. But something is null. But this is not, this JS object reference is nothing from our code. So I guess we are doing this at a point in time where we shouldn't do this yet, I'm afraid.
Okay.
But I'm not sure what the right moment in time would be. Not yet. So perhaps let's leave this as a bug for now. I'll remove this method again, do ourselves a to-do. Perhaps let's put it at the top of the file. We have a to-do. Render QR codes on page. No, it's not a page, it's a component. Component initialization. I practiced the word initialization a lot over the weekend, actually. I'm used to like fail on it.
Yeah, can we see your talk somewhere? Do you want to do a bit of
Well, actually,
advertising?
at that talk, I actually failed it. I then over the weekend with one of the speakers, then we practiced initialization. Oh no, now I fail again.
Okay, fair enough.
But to have the advertisement, no, we actually can't see the talk
Okay.
online. You actually need access to it was at the Update conference in Prague. You need I'm not sure if you can actually still purchase access to get all of the content from the conference. But I think usually at some time later in the future they will publish the talks on YouTube. So let's come back to that in the future.
Absolutely. But just to maybe keep the advertising stuff going, what are you doing tomorrow?
You're good. You are good. I am. Okay, I always forget the URL of the meetup page. So let's go to .NET Devs 80, which is the user group in Vienna that I'm co-organizing. Let's jump to the meetup page. Tomorrow we are at Rubicon in Vienna on the topic supply chain security with code assigning. So that's tomorrow at 1800 at Rubicon. If you are not in Vienna or aren't close to Vienna, you could also join online. We are both on Twitch and on YouTube if you would like to join. I post the link to this meetup page in the chat if you're interested in learning more about supply chain security.
Lovely. Sounds a lot more serious than our AdventQRlendar, but I'm sure it's going to be fun. You're going to have a good time.
Well, actually, security-wise, we could also potentially have some issues, because if the QR code that the user could enter could lead to, I don't know, my scampage.com or something, and so I could load basically any page. I could hide any URL or any QR code and link to any page via that. So perhaps, so this could be, I guess you should trust the author or the creator of the AdventQRlendar of the final version. I'm actually not sure if there's other if QR codes could contain some other potential problematic code, like something to inject that then gets executed. I'm not sure, because usually when you scan a QR code, you always get then a pop-up to what this QR code, the text that the QR code references, and then open it in a browser, yes or no. So I guess if you pay attention, it should be visible. But yeah, I guess this could be a session on.
But you know, if you're doing it first thing in the morning, and you might not notice. So there might be some, space for refactoring on our side where we sort of add some security measures. We also are planning on doing a check whether it's really a URL and not just any text, because at the moment you can, as we saw before, insert basically anything, and it will create a QR code.
That's right. And again, now the first render thing.
Yes.
There's still a bug, and we need to investigate on this a little bit off a stream. If we jump to the AdventQRlendar page, now what jumps to my eye is that we still have the randomness in.
Yeah,
so
that's
when
also an issue.
Load the page, it's the first one is 14, the last one is 20. If I jump to the other page and then go back to the page, we now have 2 and 8. So we still have the random mode here. And I guess we should make this fixed in order not to confuse the user that this always changes, and perhaps make the shuffling more deliberate by maybe adding something like a button which now says then shuffle or something similar.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So let's jump back to the IDE, and I see you are in the live share session.
I am.
Let's have a look at where we get started. Let's go to the QRlendar page. And yeah, we still iterate twice over the rows. And if we have a look at the code behind, I'll put this side by side again. So we have let's focus on the first table first. And we still have the columns and the random here.
Yeah.
And perhaps we should, or we could, do the second part of the journey we started the last year. I was about to say last session. about reusing this shared state.
Just reusing the okay, so yeah, so we sort of want to create it once and then reuse it for as long as the user doesn't press the button shuffle, right? So I guess we don't need this sort of the random. We can kind of bin,
definitely.
Right? Definitely. Good start. So this is, for anyone who's new, this is like my favorite section because it's the most fun for me. But, I'm a complete coding noob. So this is sort of where I kind of destroy everything that Stefan has sort of built for the last hour or so. So be prepared for that. So this is good. So what is this? Private int numbers. Where do we use numbers? No, where do we use that? Oh, here. Yeah, this is kind of. Is this the only? Yeah, no, here. Okay. Enumerable range, and we get the numbers here. So I guess as this is on initialized, which is kind of what we don't want anymore, I guess we can also delete all of that, isn't it?
Be gone. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. I love it. Perfect. Amazing. But now this is the easy part. This is where I get rid of everything. Now I have to actually write something as well. Okay. But I guess, so what do we need? We want one state and we want to get the number. Okay, I need help. What do we need? We need I guess a for each loop would be helpful. Would that be helpful?
Not right away. We do have what we did in the previous session, we did move a bit of code, and we now create this array, or the collection, which contains the 24 items. We moved to the QRlendar service, and we registered that as a service. So now we can inject it here in this page.
Yes. And how do we do that?
Perhaps let's. I think we usually actually create properties
Yes.
in order to then inject it. But I think since this doesn't really need to be visible, I also want to try if this could be a field. I guess it could
Ooh.
be, because what we injected last time, it was injecting to a property. Perhaps we can also do a field. So this is I think we called it QRlendar service. I'll call that QRlendar. And Blazor has the inject attribute that we can put on top of it.
Yes.
And we already get a warning, or an error is not valid on this declaration type. Okay, so fields
I don't get this
do
error
not
on
work.
my end. Okay, fair enough.
You don't see that?
No.
Okay, this may be due to the live share. Maybe this error is not shared live. But if we have a look at this inject attribute, so this is actually the code from Blazor. It has the attribute. So this is an attribute. We see that it derives from attribute, which again has an attribute. And the attribute on that attribute is the attribute usage attribute, which tells the compiler on which elements this attribute is valid. And it actually says attribute targets property. It doesn't say anything from field. So this is really only valid on properties.
Okay.
So we need to change that into a property. Do you recall the Visual Studio shortcut that we've used several times?
It's just prop, right?
Prop, yes.
Yes.
And I made a mistake. It's not a shortcut. I think it's called a snippet, I think.
Oh, is it? Okay. Fabulous. But we did that, I think, last session, and I remembered. So I'm very, very happy about that. Okay. But it's not my property. What did we want to call it?
Let's call it QRlendar. No, actually, we can't call it QRlendar because we have QRlendar already, the name. What do we call it? Service? Not the best name. QRlendar service would be the most.
QRlendar service, like this?
Precise name, yeah. Because our type is also called the same. I still have it in my clipboard, so I just hit Control V. And now we got the service that we can now use.
Fabulous. Okay.
Perhaps let's have a look. I'll jump to the code of the QRlendar service that we've built last time. We see we have a property number of doors, 24.
Yes.
We have a private array that holds those 24 doors. We initialize it from 1 to 24, where we create a new door. And then assign it to this property that we currently enumerate for each style in the QRlendar items component. And I guess we could now do something similar for the QRlendar page, but we need to take care, because in the QRlendar items, the QR codes page, we have those items sequentially 1 to 24 in just one big grid. No, it's not a grid, just one big list. But now we have a grid of 4 columns and 6 rows. So I guess we need another method on the QRlendar service in order to grab this representation. It's basically a collection of a collection, where the outer collections represent the rows and the inner collection then the columns.
Okay.
So let's jump to I guess I will cut the column and the row that we have. I'll cut that and move that to the QRlendar service. So all the business logic is in our QRlendar service.
That makes
and all the magic, well, let's not call them magic numbers, the relevant numbers are in here.
Can I then also change this one here to columns times rows? Or is that not?
This is a great idea.
Yes, fabulous.
Because now we actually had 2 places. If I change, I don't know, if the QRlendar now has a different amount of days. Maybe there is another column, the bonus column, and we would need to change 2 fields in order to make everything correct again. So that's a great idea.
Thank you.
I
Okay.
also see we could also reuse last time I hard coded 24 here. We could also, since we already know that value, could also reuse that because we calculated it already. And yeah, now we really only, in order to have a different grid, we just changed those 2 values, and there we go. Then we go.
Nice. And it also makes it readable, I guess. Yeah. Cool.
Definitely.
All right.
Now let's build a method. Perhaps the signature that I was thinking about is having a method which returns an enumerable that we can iterate, not of door, but of door array. And let's call it grid.
Nice.
Or since it's a method, let's call it getGrid. And in here, we should now build ourselves a loop that creates these doors arrays, these nested doors arrays.
Okay. But would that just be a for loop or for each, or what would be? I guess if it's a grid.
Did the snippet work?
Yes.
Oh yes, it does. Okay. Actually, I'm basically recently just started using LiveShare, so I'm not sure what IDE features are actually working for you on the other end, and which not. Yeah.
Okay, so but we'd have to iterate over. Okay, so wait. So we got a grid. So we have to.
Well, first I guess let's. Well, at least for our reading habit, it's left to right, top to bottom. So let's the outer loop should be then the rows, and the inner loop the columns in order to get the left to right, top to bottom flow.
So I guess. Oh, I didn't mean to do that, but okay, let's start here. I didn't mean to start right in the middle, but my cursor happened to be here. So I guess as long as I is smaller than, I guess, rows.
Yeah.
Is that right? And obviously I is not very beautiful. We can just call it row, right?
Yes.
No. Fabulous. Ooh. How did that That was cool.
Did you hit tab or
No.
enter or something?
No,
okay, that's cool.
Yeah, I don't know how it happened. I think I tried to double click the eye and then it just did it itself. But yeah, we'll see. We'll try it again because obviously we now need an inner loop as well.
That's right.
And here we can have column. Okay, let's see if I just go here. Woo!
Tab.
That's so cool.
I guess because if you hit tab, you can switch between those things. Yeah, those parts of the loop.
Columns. There we are. Okay.
Cool.
And then what do we want to?
Now we have an enumerable of doors. So what we can do here is either create something and return something that implements an enumerable, such an array would implement it, or a list, or we can create this in a deferred way. So we could have the compiler create a state machine for us, which evaluates this only when required. And this is then now enabled with it's enabled by returning an enumerable, but it's used by using the yield keyword. So we could write yield return.
Yield return.
And now we need to, so we basically now fulfilled the enumerable. Now we need to return the item of the enumerable, which in our case is not a door, but a door array. So let's create a new door array.
New door.
The size of the array would be the amount of columns that we have. That's
Like
okay.
this?
We actually can't really hard code it.
Oh, okay.
Okay, we can't really hard code it actually. How do we solve? Well, we could. Okay, this may be a little bit crazy, but we could have a nested. We could have a nested yield return. So what we could do is create here. I'm now creating a local function, which is a method which is only visible in the declaring method. So it could call this get. I guess I can make it. No, I can make it static. Let's now make this I enumerable of door. Oops, why do I write door? Door. And call this get. We get one column. And I will now move the inner loop into that and write yield return. Actually never did this. I'm wondering if this works. Yield return get column.
Nice.
And change the enumerable of door to it's not an enumerable of door array, but it's an enumerable of door. So I guess this is how it, perhaps we see here how this adds up. We have the top method creates an enumerable of this enumerable of doors. So this is how it links. So we have in the inner loop enumerable of door, and the outer loop yield returns into the enumerable of enumerable door. And so we can for each that. When we for each this, we can for each that, and now have our nested structure. And I guess here now at the return, we no longer create an array because we no longer have the notion of an array. We can now create, since we go through all the columns, actually the method name is wrong. This should be getRow. And create now a single door here.
Okay.
So if you change to not initialize a door array, but just a single door, we should be almost there.
Like this? No. New door. I guess I have to name it something?
No, just a regular parentheses in order to invoke the constructor of the door.
Parentheses?
Yes.
What's that?
Those are parentheses.
These are parentheses. These are parentheses? Oh yes.
Yeah. Are they
Fabulous. Not? Yes, they probably are. My brain is. We usually stream a lot earlier than this, and I think it's a better time.
I see. We should. Yeah, let's consider this for future sessions.
I thought they were brackets.
I think it goes like this. So the round ones are parentheses.
Okay.
Then we have cornered ones are brackets.
Yes. Okay.
And the curly ones are braces. But I always forget the name of the. I think those are now angle brackets.
Okay. Fabulous. Had a little English lesson here as well.
Angle braces. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if this is actual English, but I think this is actually. So the names that I'm referring to is how they're called in C#. So that's the C# names. If we refer in C# to those items, this is how they're called. And I think those aren't really brackets. This is the lower than and the greater than operator, which we basically now here we don't have for the enumerable, for the generics, we don't have brackets, but we have the lower than and greater than characters. Speaking of C#, but angle brackets in HTML languages, it's when HTML based or XML based languages, they are called angle brackets, I think.
Fabulous.
So I guess different technology, different languages refer to them differently.
But it's still underlined red. My new door.
let's have a look at the constructor. We actually have two constructors. We have a constructor where we pass in a number and a constructor where we pass in number and an URL. So
Yeah.
we have to fulfill at least one of these constructors in order to
Okay.
make this possible.
So what?
How do we get to the door number? I think the door number is the current row plus the current column.
It is current row plus column. Right? No?
Yes.
Not good.
And
Okay.
now I'm now. Oh no, hold on. You're using rows, so not rows because rows is always 6 in our case. It should be the
Yeah.
current row.
Row plus column. Ah, it doesn't like it.
Because row doesn't exist in the current context, and column doesn't exist in the current context either. I think column is due to a
Okay.
typo. I'll go ahead and fix the
Yes.
typo. But we don't have row in this context because we defined the row here in this loop, and what we see is that this variable row only lives within the scope it's been declared. So for loops, it's within the braces. So within
if we
this
declare
for
it here, would that work?
block,
Like
we could
int row is
because now it lives for
0?
the.
No, not 0. Is it 0 good?
We'll find out.
And then we have
can-
to obviously add it here as well, right?
Actually, from a for loop, a for loop has 3 parts. We have first the initialization, we have the condition, and then the increment. The condition happens before the loop is executed, and the condition is happened after the iteration has been executed.
So if we call this, just not to confuse the for loop and the outer variable, is like current row or something like that? No?
Yes, we could, but we
Current
could
row?
also just omit the initialization because all three parts of this for loop are actually optional. So we could just get rid of that and just have semicolon here, and if we have column, that works. Actually, if we just write for, what we could write is for semicolon semicolon.
No way.
This is a valid for loop. However, this is an infinite loop because there is no condition. So, or is it? Is it an infinite loop or is it never executed? I'm actually not sure. I think it's an infinite loop.
Okay. Yeah, but I like that. That's cool.
And let's give it a try. Because and now, okay, we may now run into an issue of because we're using the yield keyword here, and the yield is executed in a deferred fashion. So it could be that we run into issues, but I'm actually not sure. I never did a yield of yield. We have a compiler error. Let's see where we are. Oh yes, we have this method. We still need to update the Blazor, the Razor code. So let's go to the Blazor of the page. Yeah, we still have the for each on the rows that we have removed. Now we can do this nested for each instead of these for loops. And actually, I guess the get door number, we don't need either. I'll get rid of that. We only have the service. And now let's fix the Razor code.
1 second. Just get to the right file. Okay, so great. We have 2 tables, but they're the same. So I guess I can just bin one of them, right?
Yes.
Do we? No, it just doesn't work. Oh no.
Yeah, because if we refer to anything C# style, then we need to write an at before.
Oh yes, I remember.
And
Sorry,
so the at basically brings C# into scope of this Razor file.
I just crashed my Visual Studio Share.
Okay.
So sorry. It's working on reconnecting. I guess my connection is really bad today. But yeah. So maybe if you can write the app for me for now.
I'll give it a try. So let's have one for each loop and
Yeah.
one inner, also the outer for each loop and the inner for each loop. And since we have injected the QRlendar, we build this as a property. So we can now, if we write add, do I need to add write, or can I just write QRlendar? I guess I need an add. QRlendar service. This has, how do we call the method? Get grid. And we can now, for each this, so we can say our IEnumerable of, well, I could write IEnumerable of IEnumerable, but that's a bit lengthy. I just write var, which is an implicit type. And let's call that, that's now a column, right?
Yeah. No. Oh.
And for
Is it? Or is it the row?
It's the row. And for each row, we'll now...
I'm back.
Ah, okay. Actually,
Hello.
all right. So we now have the row.
Yes.
And now for each row, let's grab the box out of it. What's that item?
So for each item in
In the row.
in the row, just like this. Item in row.
And now, well, what's the, perhaps for the beginning, let's use this the same as we have below.
Okay.
But instead of the get door number, we write, to see if it's working, we write the, from the item, I think we called it number or door number, because this is now a door. I guess we should be able to write here door. So we can write now item dot something, whatever on that door. Not sure actually. Door dots. Let's jump to the door. This does not found. Also because we don't have it in the file. No. It's door dot number. So instead of add get the door number, we refer to this item here. Perhaps we call that door. This would make it more clear. And get a hold of the number of this door.
So door dot number, right? But wait. But do we have to have an at here as well? I guess.
Believe so, yeah.
Yeah. Do you see any? No.
Since that's a property, the convention is to have this uppercase.
Like this? Like this? Like
Now
this?
get rid of the rest. So this, let's see if this compiles. One failed. But why? I don't get an error. That's okay. I think maybe door is not, I guess we need a using, right?
Yeah.
Because door is not in scope here. Well, we could also write just var here. This shortcuts it.
Yeah.
So this, in order
Let's
to
try it out.
no, it's still failing. Which is but where? The name calendar service does not. Okay. The name row doesn't exist in the current context. But it would appear that it does.
Mm-hmm.
I'll do a rebuild. Calendar.razor. I'm not sure what the issue is. It says something is weird here because it says in the QR code. Oh, in the QR. No, that's just warnings, nullable warnings. We will deal with them in a future session. But it says in the QRlendar razor, the name rows doesn't exist in the current context. Yeah, but we don't have this anymore. Oh, yes, damn it, we still have it in the second one.
Oh, yes, of course. Yeah.
I just copy the
Yes.
upper. Yes, there we go. No, still one failed. Try rebuild, maybe this. Okay. Couple of warnings. Here's the error. The name calendar service doesn't exist in the current context of the calendar razor. .cs, but we do have the using. Do we need to? Perhaps we need to add this using also to the. There is a underscore imports file, which basically defines global imports for all Razor files, and perhaps we need that. We need to add that here as well. I could imagine. Now, so this applies to all Razor files, and now each and every Razor file basically has this namespace in scope. And ooh, do we have a typo here?
Yes.
Service, maybe. That's the issue, that we do have a typo here. Let's try again. Now we go. Okay.
Nice.
Okay, because it couldn't. No, not sure what the issue. Okay, yeah, because we didn't have the property. We had a wrong name on the property, and now I'd assumed it was a type, but this type wasn't found. Okay, but let's have a look how this looks. We have two issues. We start at 0, not at 1, and we don't really have a grid.
Okay.
Yes, I guess because we forgot the table. We only have a table data.
Yeah.
We also need the table row. I deleted a little bit too much previously, so I'll just re-add the table row. Let's open the table row and close the table row. Open the table row, close the table row, but I still have the issue with beginning at 0. So
Yeah.
would like to have a look at that in the getGrid method. So we really do start at 0.
Yeah.
So
we
let's
start at 1. Right?
And I assume we have the same issue with the columns as well.
Yeah. Oh.
And what we do need to consider is that this condition needs to be true in order to jump into the body of the method.
So it's smaller or equal to, or should we just
exactly
Yeah.
because by increasing it by 1 we basically now cut off 1. Now we bring it back, so we start at 1. Usually a loop is starting at 0 until the length of something, and since it's 0 based, we stop at 1 before the end, in order to get the full length basically. But when we are 1 based, we need to stop not at one before the length, but actually at the end, in order to get all the elements. And so we start at 1, and we have 6 rows. So we start at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6 is included, which is 6 iterations in the outer loop. And
We need the
then
same.
we have the same thing for the inner loop to get all those 4 iterations per row. All right.
Yay.
And this looks promising. Let's go. And there we have it.
Yay! Well, it goes to 10, doesn't it? No,
1, 2,
it does
3.
it.
Ooh, we have a. Oh, okay. No, it's actually not row column. It's column. Hold on. 2, 3, 4, 5. 2, 3, 4, 5. Now that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting because we do print. If you have a look at the razor, we do print the door number, and we do create. I guess it's time to debug, right?
Yes, debug time.
Ooh, I guess this seems wrong,
okay.
right? Because actually, yeah, I totally made a mistake. Because we are creating new doors here.
Yeah.
We actually should reuse these doors. We should reuse these doors, yeah. And how can we do that? Well, there is no 2 possibilities. We could change this door array to an array of arrays. So we could write like something like this. Now we have an array where each element of the array again is an array. But since we already have the structure, I believe it's safe to assume that our array that we created has this structure because we use this everywhere. We use it here and refer to this everywhere. So I guess it's safe if we assume the structure. And we do iterate through these. And but so what I want to go at is to use now this doors array that we already have and just return the item at this index. Yeah, this should be the move. So we refer to our doors array, get the item. But now the problem is arrays are 0 based. So we switched from 0 based to 1 based. We now need to switch back to 0 based. Otherwise we would go into at the end. So assuming we have 4 elements, and if we are now starting at 1, we would index into 1, into 2, into 3, and eventually into 4, and this doesn't exist. So we need to change this back to 0 based.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and remove the equal. So now, yeah, the change it to 0 and 0 based, and now we should be fine. I hope. Fingers crossed. Oh, there it is. No, we still not.
Not quite. Not quite.
No, that's embarrassing.
Okay, but I didn't quite see what we had there. I didn't see a 10 this time, and that was the only thing I could.
No, let's open it up again. I looked at the chat. Matkoch87 said live share is nice for such stuff. Yeah, it is, but we do have some issues with we are not masters of the tool just yet. Thanks for joining, by the way. At the part where we don't index correctly into arrays. Let's come to the debug session.
Yeah.
No, do you have an idea?
No, I still.
Because what I do think is now the problem. I think the problem is what I mentioned earlier is with the capturing.
Okay.
Because what happens under the hood if we have when we have a yield, then what's actually being created is a state machine. So if we call getGrid, for example, if we have a code where let's have a look at, where do we have this? We have it here. No, we don't never use this. I'll just create a method here. My method. And if we call QRlendar.getGrid, assign it to a variable, then by the time we run this method, this is not evaluated. Because since we have yields in here, this is actually turned into a state machine. So what we get here is this IEnumerable of IEnumerable, but it's not evaluated. It's only evaluated when it is iterated. So when I do now write the for each over this collection, now it is iterated, but step by step. So if we have a look at the method implementation, so when it goes the first time into the for each, it gets the first item. So it basically runs to the first yield, returns that, and stops again. Now the control flow is here. We are executing our for each body. And for the next element, again, now the code goes on to the next yield. So, well, actually, we do call it to the get row and now are here. So we basically iterate now item for item. We pass in here. Then for the next iteration, the next item, and so on. So this yield is now a state machine. It's not eagerly evaluated, but in a deferred fashion. And when we do that, then capturing variables could be a problem. And I believe we run into this issue exactly here. Because what we do here, we define the row in the outer function, in the top level function, but not in the nested function is referring to that row. And I believe through the capturing nature of this code, something goes wrong. So what I would like to try is to move the condition back into the loop and actually pass it as a parameter, so that this outer row isn't really captured, but actually injected. So if we pass it in here and call this int row here, now this could resolve the issue, because we no longer capture any state from the outer loop. We really pass it in and we have it as a variable. And let's give that a go. And it still doesn't work.
But it was a good
I
guess.
made a wrong assumption. It's time to debugging. How much time do we have left?
Well, I have plenty of time, so we can run a little over. I guess the time box that we always set for our streams is like 1 hour, and I guess we're just passing that now. But we can go on. Let's fix this. Or let's see how far we get.
So we go into the first yield, to the first method. Then we jump into the first iteration. So we have row 0 and column 0, which should be, okay, it can't evaluate, unfortunately, but it should be 0. Now we see, actually, if I hit F10, we have left the other method. We are now, perhaps I'll put them side by side again. We are now in the for each loop. So we now do the part in the for each loop. I guess that this now shows what I mentioned earlier. I wasn't aware that Visual Studio can actually debug into the Blazor code. That's a really cool feature. And now with the next iteration of the for each, we come back to this loop. And column now should be 2. Unfortunately, the debugger doesn't show this. So column should be 1. So we now 0 plus 1 should go into index number 2. And now again, if I hit F10, go to the next step, we now have the door here. We create another table data. And before we begin the next iteration, we see control jumps back to this yield, to this state machine, and so on and so forth. And when we did this 6 times, we should jump back to the outer yield and increment the row. Now if we go in there, actually jumped over it one time, and back to the inner loop, we now are at row number 2. And yeah, so this is the issue, because 2 plus 0 again is 2. We had this already, so the counting it was not the capturing, so the capturing seemed fine, but the problem is with the indexing here.
Okay.
So this should be okay. Now for the math. Rows multiplied by rows. If we say this is our total rows that we have, multiply them with the current row. So at the first iteration we have 0. At the second iteration we have this doesn't work either.
So okay, am I complete? So this is just the 1 to 24, isn't it?
Yes.
So would it just make sense to count up, to just have a counter?
Ooh, yeah, we could do that. We could do that. But I'm not thinking. I want to get this calculation right.
Yeah.
Is it a column? If we
Okay, I need a.
no, it's the row. Can I figure this out? I think it's rows by row. I want to give it a try.
Yeah.
If not,
Let's
we do
see.
the counting. Calendar, and this of course fails because I guess we go into an index out of range or something. Index was out of range. Yeah. Okay. This is not the correct way. Okay. I guess it's. I really can't think of it as well. So let's do the counting. So basically, what you suggest is to have just like an index. We start at 0, and every time we grab into the index and then increment it, right?
Yeah, but do we start at 0 or at 1?
Yeah, we have to start at 0 because indexes or arrays are index based.
Oh yeah,
Our
yeah.
doors here is an array.
Yes.
If we would start at 1, we again at the end would run into an index out of range exception. And what we can do is we could inline this. We could write index plus plus. There's actually also a difference. There's a difference between index plus plus and plus plus index. Have you ever came across that difference yet in your coding? No, not yet.
Never.
So plus plus something is the pre-increment, which means first, if we come to this line, to line 33, first this integer is incremented by 1, and then the rest of the method is called. So the first iteration actually would be 1, because we first increment from 0 to 1 and then go into this array.
Nice.
And if we have the plus plus at the end, it's the post increment, which means first this expression is evaluated. So we first grab into the array with index 0, and then afterwards it's increased to 1.
Nice.
And that's the pre and post increment. And this should work now.
Let's see.
And there we go. Woo!
Woo!
Okay, I really need to up my array arithmetics. Matthias is writing, he's glad that I'm doing something new, though you will. He thought that I was lost in Wasteland forever. I guess I found an escape hatch. Thank you, Eve, for escaping Wasteland with me.
You're very welcome. Thank you for building my AdventQRlendar with me. I literally can't wait to fill it with all the funny memes and cat videos, mostly probably for me. But
Okay, so we now have I guess we have, apart from the bug that we had in the beginning, we now fixed fixed in a double sense, the equation of the grid, and it's also now fixed, so we will always get the same thing. Do we want to shuffle that?
Yes, we do. Because that's like half the fun of advent calendars, I think, because you have to look for the number, and this is way too easy.
That's right. In order to do that, I'll actually bring back some code from previously.
Ooh.
So if I open my GitHub desktop, so this is the version control system, not the version control system, but it's a tool to visualize the version control. You could also do it on the command line. I like it to be visual though, because now I see here we removed some code, and I'll just grab that. So because this is what I learned from last time. Or was it 2 sessions ago?
Yeah.
I broke something that I couldn't revert, and I didn't commit, so it was lost. Yeah. Now I make that mistake again. So always commit. I think there is like a joke. In case of fire, git commit, git push, safely exit the building or something.
Yeah.
So first commit. But yeah, not sure. It's a joke. Or is it?
Is it?
It's not a suggestion from my end here. No. So let's go to our service, to our QRlendar service, and paste in that code and see what we need. So we do have the range here as well, the order by. So we had this order by here that basically shuffles the elements somewhat randomly. What we had previously is we initialized a random field that we then used. However, since we're using .NET 6, there is also a static random. So we can refer to random.shared, and this is a static random property. We see it here, that we can reuse anywhere if we are on .NET 6 or higher. And this is also thread safe. So it's totally cool that different components, different threads access this shared instance of a random. And now we should have a random collection of elements.
Let's see.
And
Yay!
we do. And if we jump to it again, it is random.
Fabulous. Amazing.
However, now our QR codes are also random. Perhaps this is not the best solution, I guess. Perhaps we need to perhaps we have the random numbers. How do we solve that? I guess because this QR codes, this should still be sequential from 1 to 0,
Yeah.
right?
I guess that would make it easier to plan the calendar.
Do you have an idea? Perhaps I do. We could, if we don't randomize for the underlying collection itself, so we keep that in order, but randomize the access here. But how to do that? Well, I guess what we could do, not sure if this is not the cleanest solution, but it is a solution. What we could have is a field of integers that are basically our indexes. And we shuffle this index collection. So if here are indexes, is indexes the plural of index?
Yes. I
Yes.
say yes, it is. I'm not entirely sure. I will Google it. It sounds
And-
good. It sounds good. Yeah. Ooh. Indexes.
oops, I'm doing a mistake
Yes.
here. So we create the doors. Is it indexes?
I think so. Well, in German, I guess. English might be different.
indices.
Ooh. Wait. Yeah. With like with a C instead of an X, I think.
So it's indices.
Yes,
Ooh,
that's it.
cool.
Not what. Oh, sorry. There's the first E is an I.
Okay.
Yeah, according to
Indices.
Google.
Cool.
Yes.
And we now have the. I'm also learning English. We have the collection of doors, and we have some random sequence. And instead of grabbing when we construct the grid, instead of going into the array directly, we could grab the index out of the indices in order to have random access. So we first, perhaps let's create a variable to make this a little bit more obvious. Let's do an index variable and index the array. So we access our indices variable in order, but those are random numbers between 1 and 24.
Okay.
Which should. Oh no! Hold on! I have a name clash. Yeah, I use index. We have index here twice. I call it door index. Because within one scope, a name, an identifier name such as a variable, cannot be reused. Otherwise, the compiler wouldn't know which one to refer to. Name must be unique within a given scope. And we go into a index out of range exception. Where do we have that? Ooh, yes, because, the indices start from 1. And then 24 elements, which means there is somewhere at 25. No, there is somewhere a 24 in. But since it's index-based, that's bad. So we need to start at 0. Now the highest number is a 23, which is fine.
Yeah.
Woohoo! And let's see, we have a 1, we have a 24, and it's shuffled. And if we jump back and forth, it's still starting with 24, ending with 5. Let's go again, 24, 25. However, if I reload the page, it's now random because we reloaded the entire page and no, hold on, it's still the same. Ooh, no, it's not.
No, it's not.
So if I'd actually do a control F5. That means that the service that we have is also recreated. If I just do a F5, then as well. Okay, so as long as we don't refresh the page, we have the state, even if we switch between pages. But if we refresh the page, the state is gone.
Amazing.
Okay. Are we happy with the progress?
I'm very happy.
Session?
I built so many for loops. It was great. I love it.
I guess we also how to say it, stretch the benevolence of the demigods enough for today. And what would be our next moves? We definitely want to, for the second page, want to display the QR codes that we set on the first page, and I guess first or second, depending on the order, get rid of this first render issue that we have.
Yep.
And then we can build a component which holds the QR codes here for us as well, where we shove a bit of code around, and then I guess the basic functionality is actually done.
Yay! This is exciting.
Cool. When do we continue? When is our next session?
I believe on Saturday, as per usual, isn't it?
So that's the 19th, and that's in
Yeah.
UTC 10 o'clock, right?
UTC 10 o'clock. Yes, correct.
Because there was just recently a DST
Oh,
time switch, so
yes, it
I'm always
was.
confusing times.
But yeah, I don't know. Is it then 10 o'clock or is it then UTC? What is it? 11? No.
It should be UTC style 11 and European style, or Central European style 11, if I do it correctly.
Okay.
Let's find out on Saturday if we
Let's
show
find
up at
out
the
on
same time.
Saturday. Yes.
Okay, cool. So we had some progress on de-randomizing. Next time we'll progress on state and
Yes.
displaying on the QRlendar here as well. And then we have some, for future sessions, some styling to do, I guess.
Yeah. That's going to be
Cool.
fun.
Do you have any last words?
No, just thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed our session. I did. I learned a thing or two. I hope you did too. And yeah, see you next time.
We'll be back.